So what exactly is the IB? If you're new to the IB, or maybe you just started and you still have some questions, this video is for you. Hello everybody, my name is Joaquin Revello. I'm a current UPenn Wharton dual degree engineering student, and I did the IB a few years back and got a perfect 45. So the IB program as a whole consists of 4 different programs that you could choose. The first of which is PYP, MYP, IBDP, and the career program. In this video, I'm gonna assume that you are probably gonna be doing the IBDP program. If not, you can check other videos on the MYP and PYP program that are scattered across my channel. So the IBDP program stands for the International Baccalaureate Diploma program, which is a 2-year program that is typically run from junior to senior year at the end of high school. In this program, you take 6 courses, 3 of which are typically HL or higher level courses, and 3 of which are SL or standard level courses. And I say sometimes because there are some people who actually end up doing more than 3 HLs, notably 4 or even 5 HLs, but that's not typically the norm. And of all the 6 courses that you choose, each one falls into one of 6 categories. The 6 categories include math, science, literature, or some sort of language A language B, such as let's say Spanish or Chinese, then a social studies, and finally some type of art. Now, it's possible to not take a subject in one of these areas. For example, I did not take an art course. And this is done actually more often than you think. You simply need to go to your teacher and ask if you want to have an exception away from the 6 category of subjects. But typically, maybe you change 1 course away from the arts, but normally you don't take 3 courses. And in fact, I've never seen anyone take 3 courses in one subject area. So just for context, the 6 courses that I took was HL Physics, HL Math, and HL Economics. All right, so notice how the physics was one of the natural sciences. The mathematics, well, I took Math HL, Analysis and Approaches, AA. That was the mathematics course. And then the other one, economics, that was the social studies or social sciences. And then for my 3 SLs, I took Spanish B, I took language and literature SL, and then I took chemistry SL. So notice that chemistry SL, I did not take that as an art. Instead, I took that as a science, which again, you can do. So apart from your 6 courses, you also have some bonus work to do. There's 3 quote unquote bonus work that you need to do. The first of which is CAS, which is Career Activity and Service. I don't know how I remember that from the top of my head. And this is basically just additional extra co-curricular hours, service hours, whatever you want to call it, that you do outside of class. The second is known as EE, which is an extended essay, which is basically a 4,000 word research essay or research paper on any subject that you want. Typically, the extended essay is done on one of the subject areas that you're studying. However, there were people in my school who were doing it outside of that. Like for example, I know someone who did their extended essay on sports science, despite sports science not being a course offered at my school. But typically you would pick one of the courses that you're doing, such as economics, or physics or math, and then you just write a 4,000 word paper analyzing a topic in that field. All right, so just as an example, I did rocket propulsion as my extended essay, where I built a few nozzles and I did an entire experiment around that. By the way, there's an entire video that I made on the extended essay. You could check that out in my channel or in the cue cards right here. In fact, you can get access and read my entire grade A extended essay in the link in the description down below. If you go to grizzlyelite.com/Easter egg, you type in the code extended essay and you can read my entire extended essay for free down below. You can also watch the entire video for free as well on my channel. So again, extended essay, 4,000 words. You can pick it in any subject. It should probably be one that you're studying, but you can also do it outside. And then you just write a research report on basically any topic that you choose. So that was CAS, that was extended essay. The final of which is TOK, which is basically an epistemology course. In other words, how do we know what we know? And this course is typically an hour and a half every single week, where we just talk about ways of knowing, areas of knowledge. I know that the curriculum just changed and the curriculum I had is now obsolete, but from my memory, it was just knowing ways of knowledge, discussing different concepts about how we know what we know, which I do believe is actually a very valuable skill, knowing what you know. The thing about TOK is that it's taught in a very strange way. I felt like I learned more myself just by reading philosophy books such as Nietzsche. But regardless, at the end of the day, I felt like it was a pretty interesting course. I learned a lot. I wrote an essay at the end. I'm not sure if they still have that. And it was a good experience. So how exactly are you graded in the IB? Well, every single course is scaled from 1 to 7, with 7 being the maximum mark and 1 being the minimum. Of the 6 courses, you can get 7 in each. So if you do 7 times 6, you get 42. Then the remaining 3 points come from your TOK and extended essay work. In order to get those 3 points, you essentially do well on both your TOK and extended essay. And the minimum for a 3 points is an A in extended essay and a B in TOK, or vice versa, a B in extended essay and an A in TOK. That or double A in both. That will get you a guaranteed 3 points. Now, let's say you get a B in both, and B in TOK and a B in extended essay, you get 2 points, and then there's an entire matrix as to how to figure out if you get below that. So if you add the 42 possible points that you can get from 7 of each of the 6 subjects. You add 3 on top of that, that equals a total of 45. Now you might be asking, where does CAS fit into all this? Well, CAS is actually a pass and fail. You either do your extracurriculars or you don't. And this is pretty straightforward actually. You simply just do a presentation at the end of the year where you explain all the work you were doing. And I believe before it was hours based. It's not hours based anymore, so you don't need to hit a certain amount of hours. But you simply do CAS video on the side, you show that to your CAS coordinator of all the extracurriculars you're doing, and you just get a pass. Note that if you actually don't do your CAS, you fail the IB diploma, so keep that one in mind. So the question then becomes, how do I get a level 7 in one of my courses? Well, you need to first understand that 80% of your final level 7 grade comes from the exam, while 20% comes from what is known as the internal assessment, which is an IA. The internal assessment is simply some take-home assignment that you get to do throughout the year, and then you submit that to your teacher of the subject. They mark it, and then they send a sample to the IB to make sure that they're marking it correctly. So in other words, the final mark that you get for your IA is actually determined by your teacher. And the way that your teacher knows to give you the mark that it does is through a standardization process that the IB does to all schools who offer the IB, where the teacher essentially sends a sample to the IB and then the IB checks off whether or not it's the grade that they said. So what exactly is the IA? Well, it varies on the subjects. For example, the physics IA is a lab report, which you take home, you spend a few weeks or maybe a night writing, whatever, and then you submit that to your teacher. But for other subjects such as math, it's a written report where you include math, or it's economics where you do research on some type of policy. Every single subject has a different type of IA, so you want to double check with the curriculum and with your teacher. But typically it's an 80-20 split in terms of the final grade that you get. The only exception to that are arts, who do not have a final exam. Hence, their entire grade is based upon the IAs that you do during the year, one of which is a portfolio. So with that in mind, you need to understand that if 80% of your marks come specifically from the final exam, this might actually be a shock to many people who are from the MYP, where the majority of their grades was actually the opposite. The majority of your grade in the MYP comes from your written assignments. So understand that one of the biggest difference between the MYP and the IBDP is the emphasis on test taking skills. And I think this is done very deliberately just because universities look for that type of skill, right? And at the end of the day, the reason why you're doing the IB is to prepare yourself for higher education, for universities. The classes are more intense, the amount of information you get is faster, more intense, and because of that, the IB is a great way to prepare yourself for that. So then the question becomes, how exactly are your exams structured? Well, again, this depends based on subject and whether or not it's an SL or an HL course. Typically though, the tests are split between multiple papers, which are just multiple tests, such as, or exams like an hour and a half to 2 hours long, or paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, and each paper has a different objective. For example, for math, paper 1 is a test without calculators. Paper 2 is a test with calculator, and paper 3 is more of an investigation type of paper. For economics, paper 1 is you get a prompt and you need to write an essay analyzing that prompt and giving your own examples. Paper 2 is an international paper where you get international cases that you have to read, and then you solve a few questions, draw a few graphs, and then you write an analysis at the end. And then paper 3, which is only for HL economics, is a mathematics-based economics paper. So that right there are all the basics that you need to know for the IBDP program. And it's very important that you get nailed down on these fundamentals. And as I say throughout my entire channel, just because it's fundamental does not mean at all it's easy, or does not mean that it should be disregarded. In fact, it's the exact opposite. The fact that it's a fundamental simply means that it has a high frequency of occurring, which means that you need to get nailed down on these basics and gain greater clarity on these facts. That's actually why clarity is a high performance habit as defined by Ren Bouchard by the research he did. So spending a few minutes really identifying exactly what this program is, what you're going to accomplish, how much time you're going to spend, all of these minute details, literally that takes literally a few hours to do of just understanding before you go into the IB, will save you tons of hours throughout the entire program. And more importantly than not, it'll give you the results that you want. So I urge you, go back, rewatch this video, do your own research, look at the syllabus, whatever you need to do to have a proactive approach towards your school year. And being proactive is actually very important because it's a completely different response than a reactive response. When you're going down to take down your assignments, you have a very different frame of mind than when you're simply defending an attack. So in this case, if you go beforehand and you understand exactly what's going on, you take a proactive approach, and let's say you start the assignment early, or you do research, or you just read whatever, proactively going towards achieving the result, it's much easier to win, number one, and it's much easier to maintain good mental health while also achieving higher grades than if the opposite was to happen, meaning that you procrastinate until the last minute and then the assignment seems to be attacking you. I mean, take Jerry, for example, who doesn't care about the IB at all. In fact, he tries to learn it as he goes. He procrastinates until the last minute and hopes for the best. Bjorn, on the other hand, spends some time planning his year to get his targeted 45 score. he gains clarity, and because of that, he's much more likely to achieve it. So stay grizzly and be Bjorn. All right, now as a bonus to this video, I'm gonna go through a quick pros and cons of the IB, a few things you should know, a few tips that myself, having achieved the 45 and also just looking back since I did it back in 2021, a few things that you should keep in mind, as well as some action points at the end so that you can be like Bjorn and achieve extraordinary results. Okay, number one, you need to understand what the IB actually is. It's a way to prepare you for university. I talked about this before, but you really need to understand that there are, in many ways, college level courses to give you those credits that you need, similar to AP. However, not all universities actually identify the IB as credit courses. Myself, I'm at the University of Pennsylvania Wharton, and a lot of the courses that I took in the IB actually did not completely transfer over to the university as I'd imagined. For example, my math did not transfer, and the only two courses that did was physics and economics. Number two was the skills and experience gained, not only through the content I learned, but also through the person I became. The fact that the IB is somewhat more challenging than a normal schooling project gives you an excellent opportunity to develop your own productivity, discipline, and high achieving skills. And this is really the way I saw the IB when I first started. And I saw it more as a challenge. I saw it more as something I had to quote unquote beat. And that actually not only made it very fun, but it also allowed me to tackle on the IB with this proactive attitude where I was going in to learn something, going in to actually grow as an individual. Even if none of the information that I learned from the IB was remembered, which a lot of it I don't actually remember, but the skills that I learned throughout that process, the critical thinking, especially in economics paper one, really stick with me to this day. I mean, just reflecting back on that paper one of economics, it's pretty insane how fast that makes you, right? The entire IB, since you don't have that much time, especially for paper one economics, it just makes you incredibly fast. And I see that that skill transfers to basically all aspects of my life. Now, whenever I see the news or whenever I'm reading a book or anything, it really that gear kicks in much faster than it did before the IB. All right, number three, also remember that the IB is designed to build you into a well-rounded person. As much as people on Reddit like to hate on the IB for giving them zero sleep and whatever, notice what the IB is actually trying to do. The IB, what's really telling you is that you have the ability to build this academic powerhouse while also developing all of these extracurricular activities outside of that. And if you compare that to the AP that's just trying to give you a number, there is at least some emphasis or some try to give you a well-balanced education. So the IB actually does also have some well-rounded IB student attributes. A lot of them are a bunch of BS, but at least they give you some type of ideal of the type of student they're trying to build, which the AP program does not have. However, I would argue that most people that you hear advice from make this much more difficult than it needs to be. And it is definitely achievable while also having the lifestyle that you want. I mean, just take my example, for instance. I would spend the entirety of Saturday evening and all of Sunday having fun and skiing with my friends and family during the winter. So there's a lot of IB people who tell you they can't do that. But if you actually look at what they spend their time doing, you notice that they spend a lot of time on Instagram, they spend a lot of time wasted on TikTok, they spend a lot of time wasted doing dumb, useless activities throughout the day. When instead, if you were to sit down and do a few focused hours of work in a state of flow during the week, you don't need to spend that much time studying the IB. So don't believe a lot of the hype. It is definitely possible to achieve a good sleep schedule. I got 8.5 hours of sleep, also social life, also do all these extracurriculars. I had 2 businesses running. I had this YouTube channel with Scholars Cup that I was dealing with. I had all these other things going on, and I also managed to get a 45 in the IB. So it's definitely possible. And I'm living proof that whatever they tell you about not being able to sleep, not having a social life, being always stressed, that is absolutely false. Another thing that's annoying that I think the IB actually helped me with is the fact that it's standardized. One of the things about the IB, especially the internal assessments, is that it's very clear how to get a good mark. It's very clear what the rubric asks of you. When you go to university, that's absolutely not the case. There is no underlying rubric for the majority of my classes. The majority of classes are completely subjective. The final grade is kind of just wishy-washy in the air. Compared to the IB, where it's backed up by a standardized program. And once you understand that standardized program in the IA, in many cases, you can actually break the IB. And I did this with my physics IA, where I practiced my IA over and over and over, and I really mastered how to write it in terms of the rubric, which made it almost extraordinarily simple to get a 7 in that IA. A few other things I don't like about the IB is how it makes you try to get good at everything, as I talk about on this channel, in order to become one of the greatest in really any discipline, become an elite achieving student, whatever you want to call it. Typically, throughout history, it's the people who focus in on just one thing at a time. And it's those people who become the best. That's number one. Number two is technical skills. I'm currently in an engineering school, and I don't feel like the IB really helped me hone in on my technical skills. And then number three, as I talked about before, that the universities don't always recognize the IB. So I had to take math courses all over again. So wrapping up this entire thing, and right before I get into the action points, should you take the IB or not? Well, it really depends on what your goals are. If you're looking for college admissions, if you're looking to get into an elite university, if you're looking to improve your overall ability to achieve extraordinary results in your life, I strongly suggest it. However, if that is not your goal for whatever means, don't take it. But if that is not your goal and you want to go a completely different path, well, that's up to you. All right, and you just found an Easter egg, by the way. Type in habits for life to get an infographic on how to stay consistent with your habits and build excellent habits. That's, again, habits for life with a capital H, capital F, and capital L, all one word. You can type that into the link, grizzly.com/Easter egg. Type that one in and you'll get that reward. All right, so a few things to consider in order to get a 45. This is how I did it. Number one, consistent studying. I studied roughly 4 hours every single day. And notice that after that, your brain actually starts to get diminishing results in that you're not able to maintain focus for upwards of 4 to 5 hours every single day. And by focus, I mean states of complete and utter flow. So you don't really need any more time than that. Just study for 4 to 5 hours and you're done. And then remember to take breaks every 50 minutes. All right, number two is I maximized my energy. Throughout the IB, I went to the gym every single day. I built an aesthetic body right after that, and I was weightlifting like near the end of grade 11, and then throughout my entire grade 12 and now to my university year. That was a huge advantage. It gave me tons of energy, clarity of mind. I was able to sleep 8.5 hours, really supercharges your ability to focus, learn, and become the best version of yourself. And then number three, specific to the IB, is to grind as many question bank questions as you possibly can, all right? So go find the past papers. They're probably somewhere floating online, and then just do as many of those questions as you possibly can, all right? I made this change. I was getting, I believe, 4s and 5s in my IB subjects. And then halfway through grade 11, I changed up my study approach, focused in on active recall primarily through the question banks, and I got significantly higher results, especially throughout my math journey. My math journey, I think, was like the easiest one to gain. I ended up getting, I believe, perfect 7s. It was all perfect 7s for the rest of the year. So if I did it through that, you can do it as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down below. And if you also have any questions at all, shoot me an email at joaquinr@warden.upenn.edu. That's joaquinr@warden.upenn.edu. Let me know what you think down below. And until next time, stay grizzly. I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.